Morning, everyone. Yes, it's early. And I know when you're watching it, it won't be early, but it's early because I am interviewing author Alison Weir. And I hope I'm saying her name right, but I think I am. I am so excited and so nervous because historians always make me nervous. And she isn't just like a little historian, she is huge in England, okay? She has written so many books. And I looked up, we're going to be talking about her newest book, Jane Seymour. And when I looked up Jane Seymour in Wikipedia, they reference Allison, okay? So it's like, wow. I mean, she is respected. She's a respected historian, the number one respected historian in England. And we're going to talk about that and all her books, really. But today, her book, Jane Seymour, The Haunted Queen, it came out in May. So I'm truly blessed to be able to talk to this woman. Here is Allison. Hi, everyone. I am so excited because I am speaking with author, historian Alison Weir, and we are talking everything Jane Seymour. Her newest book is called Jane Seymour, The Haunted Queen. It came out May 15th, and I literally screamed when Alison said she would be interviewed by me, so I am so excited. Thank you, Alison.
It's a huge pleasure, really is.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I get so nervous talking to historians because I love to talk history, but I'm always afraid, like, because you guys know so much more than me. So I'm like, okay, don't sound stupid. Don't sound stupid. Just.
It's like talking to a fellow enthusiast, Michelle. That's the main. Think of it like that.
Oh, that's so cute. Well, you know what? I was reading. You have the best website, and I'm going to be putting the link to your website underneath here so everybody can see it because your website, I mean, with all the books you've written, it's very interactive. Everybody can go there and learn so much. And when I was reading your biography, I saw that you were talking about how you became interested in history as a young girl. And I remember I picked up a book on John Kennedy when I was about 14 also. And I started
Yeah,
reading it and I was like, why do people read anything but history? This is fascinating.
exactly. I was just the same with Henry VIII.
Yeah, and it was like I from there on I couldn't get enough of history. I just kept reading and that's all I would read. And so I totally understand you.
It was a passion, and for me, it was just born overnight like that. I think
Oh,
my mother was absolutely delighted.
yeah, I kind of feel like it was that way too. And everybody in my family, unlike your family who really encouraged your loving of history, my family just thought I was weird, okay? Nobody
Oh,
understood it. And I would be sitting at the dinner table
I
going,
was happy, but girls at school thought I was.
I'm sorry, that it was breaking up.
So, yeah, I'm sorry. No, girls at school thought I was weird. I
Oh,
think they
yeah,
thought I was.
right. Yes, yes. And I would be at dinner going, did you know that? And I'd like rattle these facts off and everybody would look at me like, who cares? Who cares?
I think they used to just turn around and say, "Oh, she's in the library again."
Oh, that's right.
My
Because
daughter
that's,
said to me, "Mum, you spent the 60s in a library."
yeah,
Well, she doesn't know the whole of it.
exactly. Because that's what I did. I spent all my time in the library. That's what I did. So, anyway, let's talk Jane Seymour. Okay, way before The Tudors was a television HBO series, I have been so fascinated by English history. And when that came out, it was just kind of icing on the cake for me because I got to see like real people playing out Henry VIII. And so I even learned a little bit more. But from this book, everybody that I talk to history about, which isn't very many people, Anne Boleyn is big, and she was your last book. You're writing a whole series of the Six Wives of Henry VIII, but I was fascinated by Jane. I love this book so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to let you talk, Jane. You can start off.
What do you want to know?
Okay, well, first of all, I think there's so much people don't know about her. And so her you start off with the history of her family, and of course I love that because I didn't know much about the history of her family. But the number one fascinating fact I think people would love to know is that Henry and her got married the day after Anne Boleyn was beheaded.
Well, they were betrothed or engaged, as we would call it,
Okay.
the
Oh,
day
okay.
after.
Engaged. Right.
On the morning after, and 10 days later, they were married. I mean, it's indecent haste. And
It's
I think it can only be explained, probably, the one thing that would explain it rather, is that Jane would have been pregnant.
right, which I was just like I loved that. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't ever think of it like that even watching the show, you know?"
No, I mean, the show, well, I'd have issues with the history on the show, put it like that.
Yeah, I'm
I
sure.
might have to go and lie down. But,
Yeah, I'm
but
sure. I'm sure.
there is some evidence that she could have been pregnant, but it's slight. And as a historian, I'd just say there's a slight possibility. But as a novelist, you've got that freedom to explore further and ask, what if?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but even I did think that, when I learned a little bit about her through the show, was, learning about how different she was than Anne Boleyn in a way, you know?
Yes, yes, she was. She was a contrast in nearly every way.
Right, right. And I, I have so much going through in my head. I'm like, okay, where to start with her, with Jane? Let's start with her family, because that's the beginning of the book. And I am so glad that you started, because I didn't know a lot about her.
Well, for the first part of the book, the first part is quite heavily fictionalised. It has to be, because we just don't have the evidence. So I hope that a lot of it is done through credible inference from what happened later, looking back retrospectively, and trying to build storylines on that. And so there is this possibility of a great scandal in the Seymour family, which is a gift to a novelist. And I have gone with the 17th century, the later sources. But we don't know for certain whether it happened that way. But in the novel, I've chosen to tell it that way because I think there are some pointers.
Yeah, well, I loved the story, okay? Even if you took some liberty with it, because it is historical fiction, I think that, it seemed plausible, right, that a lot of that stuff did happen.
Well, it does seem plausible because Edward Seymour did inherit his sons by his wife. This is Jane's brother I'm talking about. And it's possible his wife did have an affair with his father. And that the father was the father of the two sons. It's you imagine the impact that would have on a family, and I found that interesting to explore. And
Yes.
I did base it. There are two sources that suggest this, but they're 17th century. They are later, and we should remember that Catherine, the wife of Edward Seymour, the one who's supposed to have had the affair, her father disinherited not only her but also Edward Seymour and their children. So what's the real truth behind, or the truth rather? We don't know.
I was thinking about like all the research that you have done to do all. I mean, you have so many books. What number is this book?
26, I think, and I've done 28 now. Two more are to come out.
Oh, goodness. And it's like the research must be the most. It has to be the most fun part. Okay.
It is absolutely, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That's exciting. You never know what the research is going to unearth. It might not unearth anything, but it's how you deal with the sources. I tend to chop them up and paste them all in chronological order, and sometimes things emerge from that.
I'm a homeschooling mom. Okay, so and English history has been one of my favorite topics. And one year I decided that I was going to start at the beginning, and I made maps and I made timelines. And I kept getting lost along the way, and I kept, because there was so much transition. But I do see that you love this time period a lot.
I do. But I like you, I homeschooled and I taught history, broad chronological sweep, starting with basically prehistory and going back dinosaurs, put it like that, and going straight the way through up to the Second World War. And I think that's how it should be taught. Everybody, you can't just jump, as some curricula do, from the Saxons to the Tudors. What's happened in between? If you can't understand it out of context.
That's what I kept thinking too. I'm like, and we didn't learn that way in school. And I was like, I'm going to teach my children in order of, and especially English history. I am half English, and I wanted to know. I wanted to know where it started all the way to the present.
Yeah, and I think that's good to give that broad context. I really do. So they got rather a lot of history rammed down their throats, poor little soul.
Right, right. But I do find it interesting in this country, like everybody thinks English history is boring until like we have the wedding. and then everybody's like fascinated with
Yeah.
English history again, you know?
Well, I watched the wedding with a group of American tourists who come on my tours, and there were about 40 of us sitting in the hotel watching it on a large screen with a buffet and champagne,
Oh,
and it was great fun, and they were just absolutely glued,
oh,
cheering, and it was wonderful.
oh, it was, I mean, I've waken up for every royal wedding. I'm just fascinated by them. And I think that's why, when it came to Henry and his six queens, okay, his six wives, and it's like there is so much to dive into with that. He was such a complicated man, right?
Yes, he was incredibly complex, and life changed him. I think had he had a son when he was young with Catherine of Aragon, we would have seen a very different Henry later on. We wouldn't have seen a Reformation, and we wouldn't have seen years of frustration with the Pope. If he'd met Anne Boleyn, she'd have been just another mistress, if she condescended that far, unless, of course, Catherine had died and he'd waited to marry Anne. But I'm not so sure she would have lasted that long. If he'd had a son, Catherine would have been untouchable. And if
Yeah.
Anne had born a son, she would have been untouchable.
True. And, I always felt like Catherine, and I, just from reading different books, it always felt to me that if Catherine had born a son, like, I really believe he loved her. I really think that he did love her.
I don't think there's any doubt he loved her. Witnesses said he loved her. He said he loved her. She said he loved her. I mean, there's no doubt about it. That's coming across. But I think it's a young love. I think it's a chivalric love. This is the game of courtly love. And she is his ideal. She conforms to the ideal of his mother, whom he lost when he was 11. And his mother was, in every respect, the perfect medieval queen. And and Catherine of Aragon conformed to that. She was a trophy wife because she was a great prize dynastically and politically. And she was very pretty when she was young. She was older than him.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd been his brother's wife. And I think what his brother had, like at the throne, and his wife, he coveted. And I think he did love her. And I think he did stray very early in the marriage and kept straying. But I think he would have stayed with Catherine. Well, I know he would, if she'd borne him a son. There would have been no question of his worrying about the marriage being invalid.
Well, and everybody, in their image of Anne Boleyn, we picture this like younger younger girl, okay, who just was like a temptress, like that he'd be naturally attracted to her. But
Yes.
with Jane Seymour, there were so many things that say that she wasn't that attractive, but she was like completely different than Anne. So it's like he kept going back and forth on what he was attracted to, I guess.
Well, I think she was the contrast to Anne. I think by then he was very jaded with Anne, even before he saw the evidence against her. And I think and Anne was quite stormy. She was a constant storm centre. And Jane was gentle, she was quiet, she was submissive, she was the complete antithesis. And I think, as one person said, the king hath come out of hell into heaven for the gentleness that is in her and the cursedness and unhappiness in the other. And you can see why this quiet, gentle woman attracted his attention. But I think there's more to a quiet, gentle woman than meets the eye.
And she had like, she was very religious. And she wanted everything done right, where Anne was like very willing to outwardly have an affair with Henry and let everybody know about it, right?
I think in each case, both these women believed that the woman the king was married to the marriage was invalid. Anne didn't believe that Anne would agreed with Henry that he wasn't lawfully married to Catherine. Okay. Jane would not have seen Anne as lawfully married to Henry.
Okay. All right, I see. And Anne wasn't well liked anyway because of Catherine, because Catherine was so well liked.
Anne had a very poor reputation. You only have to see all the slanders and libels in the state papers to see that and how she was thought of. And she managed to alienate quite a few of the powerful people who supported her. I think a lot of her problems, a lot of the way she behaved as queen, were down to insecurity. Because until she had that son, her future was insecure.
Right. Well, and with historical fiction, it's like, I don't want to do spoilers, but everybody knows most, if you're into history, you do know that Jane dies 2 weeks after she gives birth. And I love the way you wrote about it. I learned so much, and it made so much sense because I'd read different opinions about how she died, but did you want to talk about that? Because it's not really a spoiler, right?
I'm happy to talk about it because it seemed to me the traditional account of her dying of puerperal fever
Right.
was just didn't fit with the evidence. And looking chronologically, it looked as if there were two separate illnesses. And so, needing professional advice, I went on Facebook and said, basically, is there a doctor out there? And a long-term critical care and emergency ER nurse from the States had been on one of my tours. She got in touch with me and she looked at the evidence and she showed it to 3 doctors in her hospital. And I consulted a very experienced midwife in this country. And they all came up with these theories. And in the end, there was a consensus of opinion that Jane did not, there were 2 illnesses. That the first was food poisoning, she got better. And the second was a combination of dehydration from the food poisoning, pulmonary embolism, combined perhaps with possible postpartum blood loss and anemia. There are signs she might have been anemic, which led to cardiorespiratory failure, shock, and death. And because she's young, her heart would have taken longer to wear out. It would have been under immense strain with this, and she would have taken quite a while to die, and that fits with the timescale.
Right, as opposed to dying directly after childbirth. It would have taken, well, and I did see a lot, before I read your book, I had seen a lot of people suggest that she did have a C-section. And I used to think to myself, not knowing anything about time, the time period, but I was like, they did C-sections? And they survived 2 weeks.
Not on living mothers at this period. They did them. The first recorded one is, I think, from the 1580s on a living mother. It was usually done as soon as the mother had died to get the child out quickly. If they had performed a C-section, the result would have been a very speedy and agonising death. And Jane survived the birth for 12 days.
Right. Exactly.
Sitting up in bed signing letters that evening. There's no way she had a C-section.
No, that's what I thought too. I was like, and I don't even know when the first C-section that somebody lived was performed, but
20th century. There's a claim for much earlier, but it's for hundreds of years ago. But it's very unlikely. Right. 20th century. It couldn't be carried out safely.
Right. And if you go on YouTube, if anybody goes on YouTube, you can watch, if you watch The Tudors, her dying, with King Henry VIII, it's such a dramatic moment that they use in that show. But I did, and everybody's like, oh, look at, but I do think that he was sad. I don't think that he, I think he really loved her,
He was with her. And that is quite unusual because Henry had a great fear of death. Anything to do with death, and he was off. And he actually was with her when she died. And he withdrew himself into a private place, wouldn't see anyone. And yet, within a week, his counsellors were putting pressure on him to marry again. His only child is a son, an infant who could succumb to any childhood ailment. There's no antibiotics in those days. And he's framed his mind, he says, to be indifferent to marrying a 4th time, meaning he'll do it for the zeal he has towards his subjects.
Right. This book, I just loved your book so much. I just want to read every one of them. I love history books so much. And I know it's historical fiction, but I know there's so much research. I know that you did not stray far from, some historical fiction you read and, it's not even close, but it's like you stayed so close to what you knew to be true. And, and put a little bit of imagination, and it was brilliantly done. I am so happy that I got to read it.
Thank you very much.
I do want to talk about that, because I never heard of this, and I'm always very amazed by everything English. Okay, so I love because I haven't been there. Okay, Alison, I have not been to England, and I'm trying so hard because I need to. I know I do, and my maiden name is Dutton, which supposedly is a place in England because we have a coat of arms, and I've always felt like this connection, and I just need to get there. I really do. But, okay, so you are an honorary, I want to know what this is, honorary life patron of historical royal palaces.
Yes, Historic Royal Palaces is the charitable body that administers Hampton Court, the Tower of London, the Banqueting House, Whitehall, Kensington Palace and Kew Palace and Hillsborough Castle in Ireland. And they are a charity. They rely on donations, and I have done nearly 30 events for them over the years, raising money for them. And that's why I was made an honorary life patron. You pay a lot of money to become a patron of historic royal palaces, and you gain certain privileges. You're asked to certain events and things like that. But I had that great honour, along with about three other historians, of friends of mine, who also done work for them, and that. To be granted that was a real, for me, that was a real accolade.
It sounds amazing. I love the titles in England because we don't have that here. We just don't have very many titles here. And
You.
and I was like, okay, this is the only question I have. Does that mean you get to go to the palaces whenever you want?
Yes, I have a pass. I can take myself and 7 guests in at any time.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I can go to the events. I pay for you pay for entry to the events, but they are events for patrons, and then I can also go to members events. Membership is much cheaper, but patrons are usually people who donate a lot of money. But because I've raised a lot of money from events, that's why I got it. And I'd say it's a great honour.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, I was thinking in my wildest dreams that what you could do. Okay. I wasn't really thinking you could
I know. But if you go back to the teenage me who got into history and tell her that, that might happen one day, and I think I might have fainted.
Yeah, I really think that we don't understand, it's like you work so hard towards it, but then you're right. Tell your teenage person, like, this is what I'm doing. And you're like, what? I get to do.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So if there is any kind of not the wedding, we know you weren't at the wedding, but I mean, like, what about Prince Charles's birthday? Like that?
Well, I don't. I mean, I've been invited. I've spoken at royal events. I spoke for Prince Edward and Sophie,
Wow.
and yes, I do know other members of the royal family, but I can't talk too much about that.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just going to imagine it. Okay. You don't have to tell me. I'm just going to imagine what you do. And
Now, I spoke at an event at Hampton Court, in the Great Hall at Hampton Court, for Edward and Sophie, because they met playing real tennis there. And
yes.
the Real Tennis Association is based there. And their speaker had let them down. And I was asked to, a friend of a friend knew the organiser, and I was asked to stand in. It was a fabulous evening, and they were charming to me, both of them.
We can only imagine what it means over there. I can only imagine, but I do just love the formality of the royal family.
Yeah,
I just do. I'm one of those people, like when I read
exactly.
about what Meghan has to now do, that now that she's part of the royal family, I think it's awesome. Okay. I think, like, of course she should have to change everything. Of course she shouldn't have social media. Of course like,
Yeah.
I find it like something that we need to preserve so tightly that it doesn't become too modern, if you know what I mean.
Well, I agree with you, and I think that's the price they pay for a life of incredible privilege. But
Right.
also, it's a public life. Everything they do is public ownership,
Right.
and even that down to the succession, that sort of thing. It's always traditionally been a matter of public interest. Uh, but but they're not always that formal. I remember Camilla came to one of my events. I wrote a book, Quick Reads, a quick read. We have them over here. They're for emerging adult readers, people who've been illiterate as children, have not learned to read till they become adults. And one of these events was held in a big shopping centre near London, in a bookshop. And there were these readers were invited with with their tutors, and she came along, and she was supposed to come and listen to the top part of the talk and then the questions, but she didn't arrive. So we had to sort of spin the talk out and then spin out the questions.
Wow.
But she was absolutely charming, and she stood and chatted with people and laughed and that. And it was a really nice event.
Yeah, and it is a service, like that's all they do is service. And, they're charities and they're different things. And
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. I just
They
do.
do a lot for tourism.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, so you run different tours, right?
I do. I do. I run one or two high-end tours a year, 10-day tours, and
I'm
they're themed on my books.
I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that. Now my goal is to do that, not just go to London, but actually like get on a tour because that sounds like amazing. Like I
We'll,
can't even
we'll
imagine.
get on the waiting list. It's Alison Weir Tours, and the next
Oh,
will be around Christmas.
it's around.
That'll be for
Okay.
2020.
Okay, so that's what anybody can do. I mean, anybody that's listening, I mean, go on her website if you want to tour, the palaces, and I don't know what else. What is it like? One of your tours?
It's wonderful. I mean, it's an intensive experience. It's wall-to-wall history. We stay in luxury hotels. We dine at fantastic historic venues such as the Royal Yacht Britannia, Heber Castle. We've done the Mary Rose Museum. We're doing Glamis Castle next year in Scotland. That's the home of the Queen Mother.
Yes.
And we have a lot of enrichment. We have an enrichment program. We have 4 or 5 historians travelling full time. That's published historians with the group, giving a program of talks. We have a program of guest speakers. We've had David Starkey, we've had Earl Spencer, and a lot of high caliber, high profile historians. And then we get a lot of privileged access at historical sites. And guests get to go in when it's no one else is there, or they see parts that the public don't normally get to see. So we put everything together. You work hard on it. You play hard. You're not for the faint-hearted. You have to like history.
Well, that sounds like the way to see England. Okay, to me, that sounds like the way to do it.
Yes, it is. Well, it is, and you certainly will see some of the loveliest sites in England because we do cherry pick them.
Oh,
But I can only, because of my writing commitments, I can only run 1 or 2 a year. So we sell to we don't do any marketing. We sell to mailing lists, and I mean the last one we sold 26 places to pre-existing guests in a weekend, and the rest went in 20 minutes when it went to the general mailing list. So
wow.
it is a hard thing to get, and I wish I could do more, but I can't.
Oh, that is amazing. Well, I'm going to check it out. I'm going to put I told you, everybody go to her website. There's just so much on there. And I do see you have another book coming out in November.
In October, it's
October.
it's coming out here. It's called A Tudor Christmas, and I co-authored it with Siobhan Clarke, who is a guide historian at the Historic Royal Palaces, and she has a degree in Tudor history. She works with me on the tours, and she's a great historian. We've done joint events together. So we did this talk of Royal Christmas. It was popular, and we thought, well, why not? Let's do a book. So we've done a Tudor Christmas, and we might get to do like a Georgian Christmas, a Victorian Christmas, and so on.
Well, I can't wait to read it. Okay.
Yes,
So I will be looking for it when it comes out, and maybe we'll have a chance to talk again. But I'm so happy that I got to talk to you. I do see you on Facebook, and I love reading your stuff that you put on there, and and following you. So I'm not on Facebook that much. I try to stay off social media. I really do. It makes my work not that much harder because I spend too much time on it then. So.
Oh, it's a distraction.
Yeah. So everyone, they're looking at the copy of your book while we talk. Okay. So I'm going to have the Amazon link to her book. It is already out. You can just hit the link and go buy it for yourself. And I just want to thank you, Alison, for making this interview possible.
Thank you, Michelle, for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Have a great day.
And you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone, for listening to my talk with Alison. I am absolutely starstruck, okay? Like, I didn't even know what to say. I was so tongue-tied. I just love her. And I mean, just hearing everything that she's involved in, and we just can't imagine it. And I'm sure I came off as this like crazy American woman who, who just loves everything English, but I just do. And I'm so happy that I got to talk to her. So thank you, Alison. All of her links will be listed below here. And thank you guys for listening.